Started here, so Madam Clerk, if you could call the roll.
Senator Alvarado,
Present in the room.
Senator Harper Angel.
Present remotely within the district.
Thank you. Senator McDaniel. Senator McGarvey.
Present remotely in the district.
Thank you. Senator Nemes.
Present in the room.
Senator Schroeder.
Present in the district.
Thank you. Senator Southworth.
Here in the room.
Senator Storm. Senator Thayer.
Here in the room.
Senator Wheeler. Representative Bentley. Representative Bray.
Present remotely.
Thank you. Representative Brown.
Present, Annex Office.
Thank you. Representative Dixon. Representative Donahue. Representative Fleming.
Present remotely. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Representative Frazier. Representative Huff.
Present remotely.
Thank you. Representative Imes.
Yes, I'm present in my district. I want to wish everybody a blessed Thanksgiving.
Thank you. Representative Johnson.
Present in the room.
Representative Koenig.
Here in the room.
Representative Lockett. Representative Marzian.
Present in the 34th district.
Thank you. Representative Meeks. Representative Miller.
Present in the room.
Representative Reed.
Here in the room.
Representative Roberts.
Present remotely.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
I was just going to look for him.
Representative Thomas.
Present in the room.
Representative Meredith.
Present in the room.
Senator Mills.
I'm here in the room. And if we could have all of our participants mute, all the virtual participants, make sure you're on mute, and then all the ones live here, make sure your microphone's off. We have a little bit of feedback going on, so. Gotcha. All right. We have a quorum, and we're duly constituted here. The full meeting today is the Kentucky Association of Counties coming to give their legislative platform for the upcoming 2022 session. And we have Jim Henderson, Executive Director, and Shelley Hampton, Director of Government Affairs. And if y'all would like to come forward to the table, the meeting will be yours, and we'll have some time at the end for questions as well. And before you get started, we do have a set of minutes. Is there a motion to approve our minutes from our previous meeting?
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, the minutes are approved. Ms. Hampton, Mr. Henderson, the floor is yours.
Good morning, and thank you. I think we're working on a little feedback here at the laptop. And I was talking with Chairman Meredith before I got to the table, and I am even more impressed than normal that this is the only thing on the agenda, and this many folks showed up for the meeting on a short week at that. So I'm extremely honored. So good morning, and as Chairman Mills said, I'm Jim Henderson, and CAECO Executive Director, and my tag team partner today is Shelley Hampton, our Director of Government Affairs. And I want to thank Chairman Mills and Chairman Meredith and each of you for making time in your schedule to hear from us on the issues facing counties today. It is Thanksgiving week, and it's a short week for conducting business, and I'm going to assume that you, like me, may have your thoughts on things other than public policy and good government this week. Maybe a table of good food with family, maybe a football game, an annual family rabbit hunt, whatever it is that Thanksgiving means to you. I hope it'll be a time of reflection on your blessings, and that we'll offer up thanks for all those things that we are blessed with. Hope you get to spend it with people that you love the most, as I plan to do. And so in the spirit of Thanksgiving, I'd like for each of you to be thankful for me and Shelley at the end of this meeting. And to do that, it is my commitment for us to keep it briefer than normal and let you get out of here a little bit early. Are you all hearing that echo back here? I'm sorry. I apologize. It's distracting to me a little bit, but I didn't know if it was bothersome to you all. So, I'm technology averse. So, okay, we good? So it's my plan, our plan for the two of us to spend no more than about 10 minutes apiece with remarks, about 10 minutes apiece, and then open it up for questions. So before we get started, I do want to introduce a few folks in the room who work alongside us in the effort advocating on behalf of counties. A couple of folks from our team back at CAECO staff. Again, you all know Shelley very well. You may not know as well, but beginning to get to know our Associate Director of Government Affairs, Gracie Lagadinos, who's with us this morning, and also our research analyst, Kayla Carter's in the room, and her role is to provide the background data and information that helps inform a lot of what we advocate for. Grace Clark's walking around the room taking pictures. She's our Legislative Communications Associate, and they're all an important part of our CAECO team on staff. But you all probably know this, or maybe not, that CAECO represents all counties, and we represent all the county officials in all 120 counties, 1,500 county officials across the state. But each subgroup of county official in each county also has an affiliate organization that's just for that county official group, whether it be the county judges, magistrates, jailers, whoever. And so we have a few of those folks in the room today as well. I want to introduce them because they're important partners in the work we do on behalf of counties. You all know Jerry Wagner, who is the director of the Kentucky Sheriff's Association, former Fleming County Sheriff. He does a great job on behalf of sheriffs. Mac Bushart with the PVA Association, again, a former PVA who knows the issues in and out. Let's see. Where did JC get off to? Oh. Slipped out. Okay. J.C. Young was here earlier. J.C. represents magistrates and commissioners. Todd Ruckel, who is the director of the County Judges Association, former Lewis County judge. And I think that's all of our affiliate directors that are here. And our affiliates, again, are partners with CAECO. We're all advocating on behalf of counties. So if you see us, you see them, you see any of our county officials over here, you know that we're all on the same county team. I know many of you on this committee. Some of you I knew in my former role. I've only been in this role at CAECO for about 2.5 years, and before coming to CAECO, I was an elected county official. I served as judge executive in Simpson County for almost 20 years. So for me personally, this is so much more than my vocation. It really is a passion. I believe in the work that counties do, and I know this work firsthand. So if I get a little bit excited, the more excited I get, the faster I talk, and my pitch goes up a little. I'll try to pull back a little bit. You know, while we have a lot of legislative priorities that we'll be working on this session, and many of them are priorities that you have heard of in previous sessions, one of our top priorities this session doesn't require a piece of legislation and doesn't require the appropriation of a single dollar. So I thought that might be of interest to you. And that is an issue or a priority that we're calling educate and inform. And so so much of our priorities that we talk about, or issues that we talk about over here, you know, we often have an overestimated assumption that people know what counties do and how legislation impacts counties. And that you as legislators understand the complexities of county government, our constitutional, our statutory responsibilities, and that maybe you already have an appreciation for the distinction between county government and the other units of local governments. Counties are political subdivisions of the state. But I have to remind myself and our team and county officials that many legislators are newer and that you are bombarded from the time that you're elected from constituency groups and special interests who are trying to make sure you understand their issues. So it's incumbent upon us, and we're making this a priority for CAECO, to be more committed to educating and informing members of the General Assembly and others about what counties do. If we intend to be the organization that represents counties and their interests, then it's on us to be better at educating and informing. And so that's an initiative that we're calling Educate and Inform. And it really involves telling the county story. You know, in my second term as judge, I had the opportunity to hire an administrative assistant, an executive assistant. And I was interested in a young lady in our community who'd just finished a 2-year degree and was working at a local plant there. Her degree was in human resources, and I knew the family she came from. Top-notch family, well-grounded in the community. I'd gone to church with her parents. I knew them very well. And I tried to get her to come to work for me. And she was a little bit leery about moving after she had just taken her first job. But her mom ended up asking me, said, well, would you have any interest in hiring me? And I thought, wow, I mean, yeah, that would have been my first choice, but I didn't think I even had that opportunity. She worked for a local attorney and had been involved in the community a long time, and I assumed that she was at a place in her career and maybe in her salary that I couldn't compete. But she was interested. I hired her. And again, I tell you about her, she and her husband was a longtime employee with a local business. They were fives on the voter list, by the way, and all of you all know what that means. Very plugged in, very committed, and very involved in the community. She homeschooled her 4 children. So a homeschool parent, even more than maybe most, has to learn more about things like government and civics and history and the things that you would teach your kids. And so I knew I was getting the kind of person that would fit right in. And you know, about 6 months into the job, I remember Pam looking up at me one day in the office and said, I had no idea what happened inside the county courthouse and the judge executive's office. I didn't realize that the counties were involved in all these different things. And I think that's just it. People don't know. And in fact, I didn't know when I first got elected. You know, it's kind of like the dog chasing the car. You know, I caught it and it's like, wow, now what am I going to do? And you learn about these things, and I think people don't necessarily understand. So again, our priority that will extend beyond this session is to do a better job of helping you all understand what counties do. Jails, for example. You know, that's been an issue for counties for a long time, and it's not getting better in terms of the constraints it puts on our county budgets. I remember Shelley sharing a story a few years ago with a member of the legislature. In fact, I think it was a member of this committee long ago, a person who's no longer here, who, when we were testifying as counties about the cost of jails and the constraints it placed on our county budgets, the response from that legislator was, well, if county budgets are costing counties, or county jails are costing county budgets so much, why not just close the jail? And that sounds like a novel idea, except that it doesn't change the responsibility of the county to be responsible for the incarceration of prisoners, to be responsible for those who are arrested and taken into custody. And so again, sometimes it's just assumed that people know that jails are a responsibility of counties that we cannot not do. And so those are the kinds of things that maybe we assume people understand and maybe they don't. Jerry is here. I mentioned the head of the Sheriff's Association. You know, I think a lot of our county residents even think that the Sheriff's Office is primarily an office of law enforcement. And while that's an important responsibility of the county sheriff, the responsibilities of the sheriff's office extend way beyond that. And in some cases, in some counties, doing law enforcement is kind of like the last thing that a sheriff gets to do because they're busy collecting taxes. They're busy servicing the courts by providing court security officers or bailiffs at the order of the judge, however many people the judge says need to be in that courtroom, whatever the security needs are. Processing the warrants and the summons. You know, every citizen depends on a system where if I need you to come to court, you know, you issue a summons. That's all the responsibility of the sheriff. Collecting taxes and settling what in most counties is millions of dollars every year to all the taxing districts and all of the agencies that are on the receiving end of the property tax. I mean, those are big responsibilities, and those all have to happen before you put the first law enforcement officer out on a street doing policing. And so, again, most people don't know all the things that the sheriff has to do. I think about our county coroners. And again, sometimes the unintended consequences of legislation when maybe legislators don't fully understand some of these county offices. I remember just a few years ago, a legislator who introduced a bill that would have made it where a funeral director couldn't be a coroner. And I used to work in the funeral business a little while after college, and I understand sometimes the potential conflicts of interest that people perceive with a funeral director and a coroner. But I'll tell you, as a county judge, when I found out how little we were putting into our coroner's budget, I was very thankful that a local funeral home was willing to kind of carry that office. And this legislator's bill actually would have created over 70 vacancies in the office of coroner immediately upon passage across our state. So again, just understanding that the bill quickly didn't go anywhere, and that legislator learned about the implications of that. But again, just understanding that coroners have a tremendous responsibility, the death investigations that have to go on. In my small county, 60 or 70 deaths a year that involved our county coroner making a determination. And the list goes on. Animal control, emergency management, countywide planning and zoning, economic development, LIHEAP. Anybody know what LIHEAP is? Some of you who know. The county judge ends up being a liaison to your community action agency and is responsible for public health. All these things that, again, most people don't even know that the county is involved in. I think sometimes we all assume those very basics, bridges and roads. I mean, those are first priorities for a lot of counties, but all these other things are part of what we do. And so telling that county story is so important to us. And again, when you see us coming this session, we might just be coming to talk about that. We may not be coming to ask for much other than an open door and a willing and listening ear. So that's priority number one on our list today. We won't spend as much time on each priority as I did on that one, but because this is, again, one that we're going to focus on quite a bit, and I'm going to pass the baton to my counterpart, Shelley, who will dive into a couple of the other issues.
Thank you, Jim. Chairman Mills, Chairman Meredith, members of the committee, thank you all so much for being here. Like Jim said, it's a short week, and we understand the significance of the week. So thank you all for being here and hearing us out today as we present some of our overarching legislative priorities. You'll see in your handout, we have divided these up into 5 categories, if you will: educate and inform, county jails, transportation, criminal justice, and revenue and budgets. And so we'll go through those, and at the end, of course, we'd be glad to take any questions or hear any comments or feedback. So we'll go ahead and start with county jails. It's well documented that Kentucky's incarcerated population is being driven in large part by addiction and mental health crisis, or inmates with a combination of the two. The lack of available mental health beds is not new. In the 50s, there were over 300 mental health beds per 100,000 population in the U.S. By the early 2000s, that went down to 29 beds. This has left our 77 full-service jails as the frontline detox and mental health facility in most communities. Law enforcement is usually who is called to handle these situations with this population, and often feels they have few other options but to take them to the local jail. The crisis across Kentucky affects every county, whether they operate their own jail or, like Jim said, are closed and contract with neighboring counties. They are still responsible for those inmates. At the end of the day, each county is financially responsible. And we know the state also faces corrections-related challenges. The growth of Kentucky's incarcerated population has far outpaced our own state's population growth. Between 2011 and 2019, Kentucky's population grew by 2%. Our incarcerated population in the same time period grew by 31%, which means the financial obligation for the state and for counties only increases. Counties spend over $100 million a year out of their general fund in jail-related costs for inmates who are arrested and charged on state crimes. Currently, we have over 21,000 inmates housed in county jails as of November 11th count. Of course, the expenses only exploded when COVID arrived on the scene. The rush to separate, to segregate, to test, and to continue to house those folks to keep down the infections rate, along with staff also concerned about that. And as you all know, minimum staffing is required by law with jail standards, and so that all became a huge challenge, and I'm proud to say our jailers certainly rose to that occasion. Recruitment and retention continues to be a problem, not just for the public sector, but for the private sector, but for the public sector as well. Trying to compete with a Culver's in Lexington that's offering a $15 starting salary and a $1,500 sign-on bonus and paying people weekly is tough for counties. We have no one to push those prices onto or push those costs onto. We've got problems across the board with recruitment and retention. One of the issues that we are coming to you again this year for on the jail question is the jail per diem. It has not been increased since 2008. It remains at $31.34 a day. The state average across jails in the state of Kentucky is closer to $45 a day. Doesn't cover the actual costs. Even if you adjust it for inflation from 2008, you're at around $40 per day. So the jails that continue to struggle are in need of that increase. Again, that has not happened since 2008. Next, I do want to mention the ARPA funding. There was money in the budget to pursue the $6 million for 2021 and $5.9 million in FY 2022 to defray any COVID-related expenditures, and that will continue to be pursued as we work with the legislature to see that through to fruition. As you all know, ARPA is not the panacea of answers for the state, much less for county government budgets. Quite restricted. Next, we'll move on to transportation, another top issue for us for the last 4 years. And truly, if you look back, it's been an issue for us since you all set the floor in place back in 2015. But more than 40% of county roads are in need of moderate to significant repair. And a quarter of our members said that more than 60% of their roads are in need of moderate to significant repair. So we've got a yeoman's job in front of us just on the maintenance side. Properly maintained roads are vital to getting goods to market, children to school, people to work, and of course, first responders to emergency calls. As you all know, 95% of the state road fund is supplied by 4 revenue streams, including the motor fuels tax, motor vehicle usage tax, motor vehicle license, and of course, weight distance. But out of these, counties only receive a minor portion of one of those revenue sources, and of course that's the motor fuels tax to help supplement those county funds. Counties own and maintain half of the 80,000 roads in the state, so we are responsible for 40,000 miles of maintenance. While the overall road fund has seen some growth, the motor fuels tax has declined from its high in 2015 when this body passed that legislation to institute a floor on that decrease. You already had a cap on how high it could go, no higher than 10%, and you put in a cap on how low it could go, and that stopped the bleeding for sure, so we were very grateful for that. Many fiscal courts have had to extend the time between their road and bridge maintenance schedules due to increased cost and decreased funds. In 2018, counties spent over $60 million out of their general fund on roads and bridges, and this does not include Jefferson or Fayette counties. Crittenden County has seen its road aid allotment plunge over the last 6 years, and they've had to downgrade many chip and seal roads, which, let's admit, that is not the ideal road surface, back down to gravel due to these decreases in funding at a time when a mile of asphalt cost them $75,000. Mason County, in the meantime, has seen its asphalt price double just since 2015. We do want to thank Representative Sal Santoro, who has led on this issue for us, sponsoring legislation these last 4 sessions that will begin to address this need, not just for counties, but for states and cities as well. 15 other states have increased their road funds and fees in just the last 6 years. And this past spring, Kentucky became the hole in the middle of the donut as we watched Missouri also vote to increase their investment. But Representative Santoro's bills also included something else that we've heard from a lot of you all and our members. Electric vehicles that use the road but obviously do not pay into the road fund that they need to begin contributing. While electric's accounting for less than 1% of cars that are registered in Kentucky for now, and this will only generate a small amount at the beginning of the year based on last year's bill numbers, it is a forward-looking approach for such a small but growing percentage of all cars in the road today. Automakers that account for roughly a quarter of the global auto sales in 2019, including Ford, GM, Volvo, and Mercedes, announced earlier this month that they will all work toward phasing out sales of gasoline and diesel-powered vehicles by 2040 worldwide and by 2035 in the leading markets around the world. So the time for Kentucky to address this is now. 30 states, including all of our neighbors, have already instituted an electric vehicle fee. The vast majority of those continue to share that revenue with their county governments, and KCO is asking for the same sharing of revenues as the electric vehicle market will only continue to grow. Next, we'd like to turn to criminal justice. That means a lot of things to a lot of different people, and certainly that impacts counties on several fronts. One aspect of that we are working on now is virtual court appearances or video arraignment. That's actually been an option and been in use in some counties for several years. But some jails that have not been utilizing either couldn't afford the technology, or their circuit or district judge refused to use that option, insisting that each inmate be present at every single hearing, regardless of whether it was a 10-minute hearing or longer. This is a particular challenge when the inmate is being housed in Kenton County, say, but must be driven to Fulton County for a court date. That is a full day on the road away from their home county, leaving their home department short-staffed and risking the safety of deputies and inmate alike. COVID, of course, forced this on jails and the judges alike by way of a Supreme Court order. In the end, we saw that it saved time, it saved money, and it was a safer way to conduct these arraignments that are all pretrial. But it increased pressure on jails to provide the technology, the space for private attorney-client conversations, and for those in attendance in the courtroom able to see and hear everything that is happening at the jail. There was an appropriation of $14 million, a little over $14 million, thanks to you all, for the Court Operations Administration budget to provide these technology upgrades for virtual hearings equipment between the county jails and the courts. So we're currently working, it's a large stakeholder group that we're working with to implement that and to see how quickly we can get this implemented and up and running throughout the court system. In the process of working with stakeholders, we hope to have something for this coming session. Another issue that continues to plague our state at every level is substance use and mental health issues. Hopefully we can all work together to improve outcomes for inmates in jail and after exiting our jails, reducing that revolving door of recidivism, as well as the cost to taxpayers at the county and state level. As we all know, you know better than us, the majority of the state budget is consumed by education, Medicaid, and corrections spending. We're also looking towards the national opioid settlement dollars, which will come in over several years, but will certainly help all of us at the state and county level to address this issue. There is a focus at the federal and state level to address substance use disorder and move away from substance use leading to incarceration rather than treatment where that makes sense in those particular cases. And I will turn it back over to Jim.
Tag. So we're tag team today a little bit. And the final topic on our list of our top five, and there's a lot buried within each of those, is obviously as significant as any portion of what we've talked about so far, and that's revenue and budget issues. As you all know, the state budget, counties at every level depend on a lot in the state budget, whether it's things we've already mentioned or things that we haven't even begun to mention, between our county attorney's offices, our PVAs, our sheriff's offices, the reimbursement for court security officers. That's an important ask that we'll be making this year, supporting our sheriffs in that ask. So again, just maintaining those things in the budget that are so critical to counties without losing anything there is important, and that'll be a focus for us. Another area we're focusing on, and gets a little touchy at times to talk about this, but the rising costs of county audits. It's kind of a hidden cost that ends up affecting some counties more than others, and we're looking at some ways, or to see if there are ways to still maintain that full transparency, and obviously counties aren't at all opposed to that and the openness of an audit, but maybe a more efficient way of doing that. And I know there have been some discussions in years past about agreed upon procedures and other kinds of things. And we're just having conversations about how to do that, maybe expanding a more competitive market-based solution to that model as a requirement rather than as an option. And so, again, still ensuring complete oversight and compliance. So budget discussions are critical to us. The one thing, and I was here last month with my counterpart from the League of Cities testifying on behalf of the constitutional amendment that Chairman Meredith has really championed. And the reality, I won't restate that because most of you were here and heard that conversation, but if we want to really have a conversation about tax reform, about different ways to raise revenue at the local level for counties to be able to do something different than we currently do, It just simply requires a change to our Constitution. And so we'll continue to advocate for that, because in the absence of that, a lot of the other things that we talk about on tax reform at the county level, we're just hamstrung. We can't do them even if we wanted. And so we'll continue working on that issue and advocating for more county options in the future. With that, I think we've done a pretty good job of maintaining our commitment to staying brief, and I'll turn it back over to you, Chairman Mills.
Thank you so much for your presentation, brief presentation. We've got a few questions to follow. I'm sure a few more trickle in here. Representative Miller has a question. He's first on.
Thank you. Good job of keeping it brief. Let me ask, on per diems, what is the federal per diem that you're receiving now for federal prisoners in county jails?
That's dependent on the contract that each jail strikes with the federal government. It's usually in the mid to high 40s, sometimes 50s. It really just depends on each jail's contract.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, Representative Frazier has a question.
Hi, thank you for being here today. It's always good to hear from you. In regards to the video arraignment, have you had discussions with the Justice Cabinet, and could you expound on that just a little bit?
The stakeholder group is large, as you can imagine. Anytime you talk about anything that has a whiff of criminal and then justice and then reform in the back, I mean, every stakeholder group is represented. We've had one meeting by Zoom. I'd like to see another one, maybe have it in person. I just feel like, you get a lot more out of that, and people feel free to talk on that. So we've got AOC, we've got state stakeholders, local, we've got DPA, prosecutors, jailers, sheriffs, county attorneys. The whole county family is in those, absolutely.
Well, I'm hopeful that something meaningful can be done in that
We are
area,
too.
because that seems like a very
Agreed.
cost-saving measure.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Thank you. Representative Bentley has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you all for presenting today. With the funding coming in for the Global Opioid Trust Fund, have you already set up a committee or anything to suggest how you all would like to spend your money, since 50% of it go to the counties and cities?
I don't know about the actual committee. Are you talking about the committee that was provisioned in the statute, the state committee, or
The
local
commission,
committees?
yes.
The commission?
Under the Attorney General.
Right. But now the commission under 427.
That's for the state funding.
Right. I don't think there was a requirement for a commission or a committee that counties were involved in. But I do know a lot of the counties are already having conversations. We've talked with the Attorney General's office, and I think a lot of counties, I know Representative Frazier, I know Judge Taylor, we've talked quite a bit, and he was very closely involved in that, as was Judge Moore, about finding some ways to do some collaborative work. In some of these counties, I know that amount of money, while significant as a whole, might not be a lot for a smaller county or particular county. So we're encouraging counties to work together, to look at some kind of regional or multi-county solution, and work with the Attorney General's office. So we've had conversations with the AG's office about some of that.
But the proactive committees or anything, you haven't done anything like that yet?
No, we haven't as an organization, but there's plenty of discussion. We've had several webinars where we're trying to train our folks on what the limitations are. That is going to, as you know, is going to be restricted funding, what you can use those funds on. And so several counties have already been in conversations. A lot of them already have a city, county, or a regional approach to trying to tackle this issue. But we don't have a CAICO committee per se.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. Our final question is Senator Nemes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There's been a lot of talk about EV tax because they don't pay any taxes to use the roads. And there's been a lot of talk about raising the gas tax because we need more funding, although the gas tax has gone up with the increase in gas. Has there been any talk of not separating that and make it equal and have a usage tax, doing away with the gas tax, and not call it an EV tax, just say a usage tax, either through registration or whatever?
We have looked at a lot of other state models, Senator Nemes, and there are multiple different ways that other states maybe generate revenue for their transportation funding. I mean, I think from the county perspective, at the end of the day, and I would say this is probably true for the state as well, the mechanism or methodologies maybe not as important as the bottom line. I mean, the actual ability to have enough funds to take care of our roads and bridges. So any of those things we would certainly be open to. You're right. I mean, as Shelley mentioned earlier, I think that there are projections that as many as 30% of the cars that will be sold new by 2030, by 2030, that up to 30% of the vehicles sold will be electric. And so whatever we do, we really can't wait much longer to start thinking about an alternative funding source for transportation. I mean, I fully believe that there will be a point that we'll look back at gas tax, kind of like we do landline 911 fees today. I mean, it's not something I'm particularly happy about, or I don't know that I personally embrace it all yet, but I think it's political, it is reality, not political reality, but that we're going to be moving to that as a country. And so as that happens, we're forced to rethink the model. I think not only Kentucky, but everybody, the state, other states and the federal government. You've seen that the federal government's not interested really in pursuing even a gas tax as a policy at the federal level because they're so focused on shifting the model away from fossil fuels. So I would personally invite any conversation that would involve other types of ways, whether it's a point of sale fee, a registration fee, whatever seems fair. I mean, I think that's the issue is today, gas tax has traditionally been the fairest way for the users of the highways to pay for them. As that shifts, it will disproportionately shift that cost to fossil fuel burning vehicles if we don't find a way to fee or charge other people for that use. So,
thank you.
Senator Alvarado has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you all for your presentation. Appreciate. And again, this is always I don't know if you know, I keep these and use them throughout session when y'all put these kinds of handouts for us together. A couple of quick questions. Obviously, a lot of the topics this year is having to do with taxes and where we shift those. And I know there's been rumblings about a kind of a tax reform package. And so I've heard that at least from the House. I know a lot of House members probably will have more information than I could possibly have about that all that needs to start. But I also, Judge Chris Pace, who passed away this past, a few weeks ago, good friend of mine. I've had a lot of discussions about that, and he had expressed a lot of interest in having a bit more control at the county level in terms of taxation from a lot of our organizations that can raise taxes locally. And he had requested that we take action this year to give more authority back to our county officials, our judge executives, for at least approval of some of those tax rates. We've done some work on that in the last few years. I was hoping you could comment on that, if that's the will of CAECO, if that's what we've heard from other judge executives, and obviously in Chris's memory, I know Chairman Mills and I have talked about that this past summer, but it becomes that much more poignant now for me. So I was hoping you could comment on that.
Well, Senator Alvarado, and we absolutely supported Senate Bill 5 that you helped shepherd through, and I remember a conversation that both you and Leader Thayer and I and a few of our county officials had about this very topic, and I do think that there's general support and interest on the part of county fiscal courts to have more oversight over entities that can levy taxes. And I won't, for fear of saying something that somebody later will say, well, you kind of got out there on a limb a little bit there. I think most county officials would probably welcome more of that as a way. Some of those organizations, and they do great work. I mean, the whole purpose of those taxing districts, as most of you all who study this issue know, was because there was a time when counties, as their total ad valorem tax rate was approaching the max, and so they broke off these special districts and allowed them to have a special taxing authority to provide certain services that used to be completely funded out of the county general fund. So, I mean, there's true value in having that option out there in counties, but in some cases, again, I don't want to keep talking about my former president, but I've heard from him quite a bit over the last year, Representative Frazier, and I understand, the issues. I mean, in Madison County, for example, the county library has more in reserves than the county. So again, in those cases, I do think there's probably interest on the part of county officials because ultimately all those taxes were levied on the same group of taxpayers. And I know that one of the pieces of legislation we've advocated before that Senator Schickel has brought forth a few times, and I think Todd, and I certainly don't want to speak for the judges as a group, but I think continue support for even just having the authority to appoint members of certain boards. In some cases, that's restricted, and the methodology for how those names get to the county judge or the fiscal court is through a selective way. You know, I think in some cases, if a county judge could appoint members to those boards without restriction, that you might place people on those boards that have a different view, or maybe a view that's a little more representative of the elected body in the county. So, long answer, but I think yes, there would be support for that. We polled our members 3 years ago at our general session or our annual conference, and the support for just Senate Bill 5, the spirit of that bill was overwhelming. And so I think advancing that conversation will be welcomed by county officials.
And I would welcome input from you all. I think there's, again, Chairman Mills and I have talked about that as far as putting something together. So I'm sure we'll have some conversations on that as things go forward in the next few weeks. Another topic I wanted to broach, I know the county clerks are part of the organization for CAECO. Obviously, we've got a letter from them not that long ago about redistricting in our state, urging for that to be done with urgency and be done as quickly as possible. I know we've got very few weeks before the beginning of the year, before the general session starts. Hoping you could comment on the importance of that and getting that accomplished, how important that is for our local officials to get that done as quickly as possible.
Well, certainly without being political in that, yes. I mean, absolutely, it would be beneficial to all of us to have redistricting of the legislative seats accomplished sooner than later. Obviously, for county clerks, drawing precinct boundaries and all of that, the sooner the better. And, you know, next year's a busy election year with all the county offices on the ballot, as well as legislative races. And so, you know, our county clerks do a fantastic job. I really think Kentucky county clerks really did shine, you know, during the last year and a half and be able to demonstrate they could do elections in the most challenging of times. And so they can do it. They can work under pressure pretty well. But the sooner that redistricting is done, I can assure you county clerks would be very happy to see that sooner than later.
Thank you. One more question, if I could, Mr. Chairman. Another topic that was from a recent judicial ruling, it may be something we need to talk offline after from the hearing, but a judicial ruling recently regarding individuals. There's a 2 oaths kind of rule that we know that's in statute about people that can't have 2 oaths serving in dual capacities in government. And they had a recent ruling over an individual that was a kind of a city law enforcement officer that also is serving as a magistrate in the county level. And so there was a concern of a conflict that went before the courts. The court said, no, that person's an employee and it's permitted. And I've had a lot of conversations with a lot of people about this, proposed a bill that would disallow that, saying if you're employed by, let's say, a city commission, that you cannot serve on county government, and vice versa. If you were employed in county government, you couldn't serve on city commission because of the conflict of interest that's inherent there. And I've talked to former local officials, people that have served in that, who've agreed with that. Was wondering if you've had, it's kind of maybe off topic, but something that maybe, I don't know if you've had a chance to even review that bill that I filed last year regarding that, to disallow that, just to make sure that there was no conflict on that issue. Wasn't sure if you had any opinions on something along those lines.
No,
I think we've heard much about it. I mean, I think it's pretty isolated when those things might happen, but certainly would be interested in understanding a little bit more about the legal thought behind that. There are incompatible duty rules today that apply that are pretty black and white, that we are aware of, that you can't be on the school board and also a magistrate, or you can't maybe serve on an extension taxing district and be the county judge or what have you. So I'd be interested in knowing more about that. I don't know that that's an issue that's come up much.
A recent court ruling is what prompted it, because we thought it was kind of clear. And then when the court said, oh no, if you're employed, and I thought, well, so can a judge executive then hire city commissioners as personal secretaries and then exert influence? Or can a mayor hire magistrates or county commissioners as personal secretaries or employees of the city? And it becomes a conflict. But the way it was worded by the courts created a huge loophole, which I'm interested in closing. And so I welcome that feedback. I'm sure I'll talk to you about that later on. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the indulgence.
You're welcome. Our final question here is Representative Koenig has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can I make statements instead?
Yes.
Thank you. Appreciate it. I will be quick. Two quick things. One issue that I've encountered with a fire district is that they're not eligible for ARPA funds. You talked about special districts, so that just kind of jogged my memory. This may not be a county-related issue, but independent districts aren't eligible for that money. But if a fire district fire department is run entirely by a city, there's money that gets sent to them that they can then use for that fire district. So something just for anybody here on A&R, as well as any members of leadership that might want to keep that in mind. Secondly, with regard to the electric vehicles, I had a task force bill for a few years to look at charging people by the amount of miles they drive rather than the amount of gas they purchase, and that doesn't seem to have caught fire quite yet here in Frankfurt, but the fact of the matter is it's going to happen soon, one day. The question is, will Kentucky be at the forefront, or will we be at the end like we so often are? And given that we have electric batteries that are going to be made in the state, maybe we ought to be more to the forefront of that. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. Thank you. I believe we've exhausted all of our questions here today. This is our last committee meeting, and before I say this, I just want to say thank you to Keiko for making a presentation, and you're a valuable asset to all of us as far as communicating needs and wants from the counties, and our offices are open to you to continue the relationship. It's important. That doesn't always mean we agree with everything, but that's part of the process. So thank you so much for coming today and representing the counties. This is our last meeting of the local government committee, unless something else pops up that we're not aware of. One thing I want to quickly do is recognize we have 4 individuals on our committee that have worked behind the scenes hard during the interim, and that's our staff, and we want to make sure that they're shown some appreciation today. Mark Mitchell, Christopher Jakovich, Joe Pasinski-Lee, and Cheryl Walters. So I got 2 names there that tripped me up, but they are very valuable employees of the LRC, and we want to say thank you for your work. Okay. If there's nothing else to come before the committee, we stand adjourned.